Right, let's get going with this then. It is Sunday, the 12th of December. This is the Stage Analysis Members Weekend video part 2. So tonight's video is going to be just all about the individual stocks that I'm obviously looking at the moment that have come up in the watch list during the week and including the weekend watch list stocks as well. So I'm going to start with SBLK, which came up earlier in the week in the watch list again, and obviously came up a few weeks back as it started to make a stage 2 breakout on the intraday time frame here. So this is a 2-hour chart. So I thought it'd be good to start with this, especially for obviously newer members as well. It kind of is a good way of explaining the multiple time frame approach, and obviously combining stage analysis and the Wyckoff methods together. So you can see the Wyckoff markup on here, the SC, the AR, the ST, the UT, and the test and the spring and the LPS and the SOS and the BU. So this is your typical accumulation sort of markup. So you have a selling climax, you into an automatic rally, a secondary test, some upthrusting action, potential spring there, and then a test from the spring. Then we have a last point of support, and then a sign of strength rally, and then a backing up action there for obviously breaking out through there. So how this combines with stage analysis is obviously we have our stage, the 4 stages. So you've got a stage 4 decline there. The base that forms down here is called stage 1. This is our accumulation base. So obviously all your Wyckoff markup comes in handy as you start to understand how the structure forms and the areas that you need to be watching for. And then you are with stage analysis, we're then moving off into a stage 2 uptrend here. So again, this is intraday. So I'll show you how it works with the multiple time frame in a second. But we've got this. I highlighted this on the feed on the day as basically the stage 2 breakout on this, and same. Obviously, we were looking for waiting to see what the sign of strength rally would be and how the backing up action would form. So in terms of actual entry points with this, once you're through the stage 2 breakout, obviously, if you don't catch it immediately on the stage 2 breakout, you're waiting for the backing up actions. You want to see how the sign of strength rally develops, and then you want to see how the backup forms and whether that backing up action actually pushes back into the original base or whether it has a solid reversal and then back through. So you can see volume, you want to see diminishing volume on a pullback in the backing up action, and you want to see the backup hold above the top of the previous base. So this is a classic kind of stage 1 into stage 2 and the backup. So stage analysis has 2 entry points. You have the stage 2A breakout point here, and you have the backup, which is around this area here. So once you can either obviously do immediately on the pullback into the base area, but that's much more tricky because you don't know that the price action has actually stopped, or generally you want to wait for a reversal to form. And the fact that you're on a lower time frame, it's obviously much less in terms of percentage wise in terms of risk then. So this kind of bar here, or the follow through, and then you can obviously have much tighter risk on that secondary entry point. So they're your 2 sort of stage analysis entry points on here and on continuation breakouts. Whereas with Wyckoff, you're looking from what we call phase C. So phase A is from the selling climax, the automatic rally, and the secondary test is your phase A area. Then phase B, we have what we call testing action. Phase C is where you tend to get either a spring or a last point of support. Sometimes the spring can form in phase B. So in this one, it looks like the spring was potentially in phase B here. And then your last point of support was your phase C. And then we move off into what's called phase D. And then the final bigger breakout, we move off into phase E when we're in the full markup stage. So basically entry points using Wyckoff start from the spring and test, and then at the last point of support, and then on the breakouts, and then in the backing up action in here. So basically anywhere in this zone is good in terms of the Wyckoff method and the stage analysis method in terms of actually looking for entry points. Like there's no specific entry points that you need to obviously focus on particularly. That you can, sometimes people will take through pivots, or you'll like tight volume with it on pullbacks, or obviously follow through pivots, like pullbacks to the support and resistance levels in there. But basically anywhere within this area, once you get this sort of change of behavior start to develop, once the trend starts to turn, the moving averages start to turn around, and we start to see that potential move into later part of stage 1 into stage 2, then you're obviously you've got more favorable risk reward than you do when you're obviously in a downtrend and you don't know where that's going to end. So basically, it's giving you a base of support to then work off of. So this is our sort of area of focus in terms of everything I really post in terms of all of the on any time frame, whether it's daily, weekly, or intraday. So you can obviously use these to get in. You can much more get into breakouts on the intradays and still be within a pullback, for example, on a bigger time frame. So if we go up from this is the 2-hour chart, for example. So we then move up from this up to this the daily chart here. You can see that the stage 2 breakout presented as what we call a reversal significant bar. So this was the highest volume close that we had in terms of volume, obviously all year there. So this was what we call a significant bar. It broke multiple levels. Intraday was a stage 2 breakout. You can see the volume there, significant. So that then gives us a level to key off of, and this bar here. So you can see the pullback, as we said, was pulled back into the top of the range and held, and then we got a reversal. So on the daily, you got a full bar through, then reversed all of that. But on the intraday there, you could have got in with obviously much tighter risk management there. So it was still under the 50-day moving average at the time, but as we can see on the intraday, it was starting to move in the right direction and starting to get above this 30-bar moving average here. I think it obviously is the same as whether you use it on the weekly as well. So stage analysis on the weekly or the intraday 2-hour time frame can be, or 1 hour even if you want to go further down, or even the 30-minute, it can be used. And sometimes you go as far down to the 5-minute and 1-minute charts if you're really into day trading or something like that. But for swing trading purposes, I find the 1 or 2 hour charts much more useful in terms of actually the bases develop fully as they do on the weekly and daily time frames, and you get all of the kind of different areas to potentially enter. So just wanted to highlight that. You can see at the moment this one is still on the watch list now. So since that significant bar, we've had that pullback. We've started to move up. We recovered the 50-day moving average. You can see the 21-day moving average has just crossed back above that, and we're pulling back in. You can see we're pulling back in on declining volume there. So what we call diminishing volume characteristics there, and we're coming back into this secondary like pivot point here. So you've got, again, if we go back onto the intraday, you can see it's come into a level of support at the moment, just about, and starting to on low volume, especially, which is the especially important bit. Obviously, if it starts to break down from here, then on the intraday, that would then start to move in potential stage 3 here. That would be a change of behavior, and then that would then make it less favorable and take it off your radar a little bit, as it would then potentially start breaking back below this 50-day moving average. If this can hold at the 21-day and the 50-day moving average here and start to form out, start to tighten up around this area, or start to rebound up that way, then it could potentially be tradable for an add-on type position now and start to build up. So I just wanted to highlight that one as a starting point in terms of how to use the two methods together. So Wyckoff and Weinstein, in terms of the entry points that we look for in stage analysis and using Wyckoff method, and how obviously similar they are, and that they basically just gel together and as one. Really, they could be one method. Really, it's just different ways of looking at the same type of price action using the same price cycles. Right, let's move on then. So let's go on to, I've compiled a list of, we've got the weekend watch list stocks, and we've also got some of the better looking charts from the week that are still near actionable points that were on the watch list area early in the week or the previous week. So I've gone through and compiled a list of stocks, and so I'm just going to run through those as I would do when we go through the watch list stocks. So Airbnb, for example, we got a pullback into that 50-day moving average at the end of the week there. You see volume was light on the pullback. Got this significant reversal bar here, although volume wasn't very strong on that one, but it's pulled back quite. It came off quite a lot when it come from its original significant bar here. So we had a failure at this point here when the market was pulling back, and it was showing some relative weakness there, but it has recovered reasonably well when it's got back above that 50-day moving average. So this near-term pivot here would now be where I would think it would be potentially actionable again. So 187.5 in terms of an alert around that kind of area. So if we can get a high volume move through that pivot point there, then that's got potential. You can see on the 3 ATR candles there, the 1 ATR level's up at 190 at the moment, so a little bit above there, but that could potentially put that back into a short-term uptrend. But at the moment, we're in a kind of sideways range with this one until we get anything different here. So you're in the early sort of phase A action of a base action at the moment. So any kind of move through this area here, if you get a strong move through there on volume, then potentially you'd be looking for a secondary test or an up thrust in action at the top of the range. If you've got some up thrust in action, then it would be a good area to consider trimming, I would imagine, at the moment, because this is a change of behavior. And so it would be in terms of a short-term swing up into that area, but it could, if it showed a sign of strength and carried on, then you could obviously hold for a bigger position. But for the moment, that's the kind of thing that I'd be looking for on that one at the moment. ACN, this was on the weekend watch list, I believe. This is just a straight stage 2 continuation move. So you can see its character of the stock is why I put this one on the watch list. As you can see, throughout the year, the pullbacks to the 50-day moving average have been fairly contained. There's been no heavy, significant change of behavior bars here. You've got a few of these big red bars, but they're not huge, even in the recent volatility here. If we look at it on the weekly time frame, you can see it's just been in a steady stage 2 uptrend since the March 2020 lows. And it's just continuing on to new highs here. So that one looks interesting. Adobe, again, I think I put this on the weekend watch list, but it's been on the watch list multiple times of late. We did have this shakeout behavior underneath the 50-day moving average here, but it's recovered back above the 50. Obviously, the mega caps were getting some strong action on Friday. They were certainly holding the market up and outperforming. So this, if we look at it on the weekly time frame here, it's starting to look a bit stage 3 like. It's not brilliant in its overall look here. You've got the sort of a early phase A action there into an up thrust and down. So we could be starting to form a base here, but obviously if it can make a continuation move through the top of the range there, then that could obviously invalidate that. But again, just take it as it comes. AEVA. So I've highlighted this one a few times. I think since this significant bar day here up into its 200-day moving average, you can see that was on the heaviest volume it's had for a while. There was some other heavier volume moves back down here, but you can see the basing structure that it's been forming over the last sort of 7 or 8 months now. It's got the original selling climax down here into an automatic rally. Then we had a very high secondary test there, and then we went into sort of some drifting lower on some testing action, but it stayed within the range, and we made higher lows compared to the selling climax. So we look at it on the weekly time frame, it looks messy, but you've got a stage 1 base forming down here. So from that selling climax down here, we've got this stage 1 basing action. You can see the 30-week moving average has now started to flatten out. We've got the 10-day is still below it at the moment low. So ideally you want to see that 10-week moving average start to cross above the 30-week moving average and start to see this move up and down in there. But potentially you've got a stage 2 breakout level around here. So if we've got a big weekly bar through there on heavy volume, then that would potentially put it into early stage 2. But the top of the range is still up here. So it might be, this one still might need more basing time, but you could potentially be looking at this for shorter term kind of purposes, as it's curling into this 200-day moving average now. So which I find interesting as it gets into there. You can see this kind of spring type action and higher test at the moment. So there's a lot of charts that look like this at the moment, in terms of we had this low on December the 6th. And then last week's action, the Thursday and Friday pullback, has obviously closed much higher than that December the 6th low at the moment. So I'd be looking for move through near-term pivot levels here. So up through the $10 level, especially on this one. So the $10 level acts pretty similarly to the $100 level. So that's one of the things I look for on these kind of single-digit midgets, where they're under $10 still. Once they get through that level, they can tend to have a good strong run. So that's what I'm looking for on that one, to clear this near term sort of area of resistance here. As you can see, this near term level in here is probably up to 10 point, 7 or 8 there. So what we got? 10.75 on the high of that pivot and 10.72 on that one. So yeah, up through 10.8, maybe even as far as 11 there. But we can start to close back above that 200-day moving average. You can see we haven't got a close above it yet. Then it will start to look more interesting than this. All the work it's done in this basing structure, obviously of potential accumulation, could then start making it move up into stage 2. But we're not there yet. But there is potential if it starts to move through that area. Right, AMAT. So this one has been forming a big range for the last 8-9 months or so. I've highlighted it multiple times during that time while it was basing, and then once it started to break out again. So there is a chance that this could be an upthrust action. So if we look at this on the weekly chart, then we could obviously be seeing an upthrust after distribution here. There is obviously a chance of that, especially if the market rolls over. So we've got this stage 3 top here. We had a stage 2 continuation type attempt, but there could be a little double top type thing going on here. It still hasn't committed to the upside fully. We haven't had that continuation breakout. So this actually started to roll back down again into here, then that could turn into an upthrust, and then that would actually be a near-term sell signal if it did that. But obviously on the other side of things, what we're looking for is this continuation breakout. So if we can get that continuation breakout to the upside there, good on strong relative volume, then that would be good for a stage 2 continuation on this one. But at the moment, we are in a sort of a dangerous position where this could turn into a little double top. So until it can break through that near-term pivot there, then obviously be aware of that, and would be obviously tight risk management on this kind of stock. So 158.72, 158.74, and then 158.34. So yeah, through kind of the 159 area to clear 160, to clear that kind of range that it's in at the moment. But still been viewing this as a reaccumulation. There was a early shakeout, like sign of weakness back here, but then it made higher lows, and we had a secondary. We had a shakeout type move and test, so local spring and test at the 200-day moving average here, which you obviously often see. The 200-day moving average often acts as support, so we saw that, and then it's obviously had this sign of strength type rally, and then this has been forming a potential backup. Like I said, it could actually turn into an upthrust if this starts to roll over and we start to come back through these moving averages again. But at the moment, still treating this as a sign of strength and backing up action until proven otherwise, basically. AMD, obviously we've talked about this one a lot over the last 6 months. It's been a great stock, and in terms of the basing action we had back here was highlighting it at the time through the end part of the base to the members, and then we had the sign of strength rally into the backup. You can see how the backup here obviously came right into the top of the base again. It reversed back at that support, so obviously resistance becomes support, rebounded off, so you got your secondary entry points, and then we had that strong move through the earnings. You see the volume obviously ticked up huge there through this whole run, and then we went into this secondary basing kind of action up here. I think I attempted it in this area here for a move, and then I tried it again back up in here and got a good little trade through this area. I think it was just from that bulk there. I think I took it off on the up thrust there, so I didn't catch the rest of the breakout move on that one, but I got a good short-term trade out of that one for that kind of area in there. But it's still got potential. If I zoom in on this a little bit here, we put the ATR bands on, you can see the range that's been developing. So this is our change behavior bar area here. So you can see from the climactic move there, we've had a change of behavior, and it's started to rebound, and it couldn't get back above that 21-day moving average, but it has made a higher low in here so far. A little bit of a demand tail there, and there was a demand tail in that one. So at the moment, what I'm watching for on this one is for a break back through this pivot, as that would clear back through the 21-day moving average, and you potentially start getting back up to the 180R level, which, as you know, when we're above that 180R level, we're generally in a good uptrend. That's when you're in a strong uptrend. But if we can get a good strong move through there, then that could give you a potential W bottom type pattern, and obviously on some stronger volume. So that's what I'm watching for on that one. Again, if it starts to break down here, if we actually pull below this pivot here and get underneath this 50-day moving average for a couple of days, then that one would be totally off the radar. That would be a much bigger change of behavior, and we look at it on the weekly chart again here, that would obviously start bringing it in much more significantly, and you potentially be starting to move into stage 3. So at the moment, the pullback is a normal range pullback. You can see you look at the character of previous pullbacks in this current stage 2 advanced, and this one hasn't done anything wrong yet compared to the other pullbacks. So, but if we start getting a big bar down here, if we get like a sudden selling down here that brings it all the way back down to the 30-week moving average, then this would become potential stage 3 range at that point, the beginnings of that. But obviously we're looking for that tennis ball action, break through the near-term pivot there, last week's high, and start to move back on towards the upside again for a potential stage 2 continuation. So it's AMD, ANTM, so Anthem. This one, again, in the kind of backing up action at the moment. We had a little double top, which then rolled back over into the range, undercut the 50-day moving average for a few days, and then has rebounded strongly back up towards the top of the range again. So you can see we're forming this kind of base on base pattern here if we look on the weekly chart. So you see this base that's been forming here. It held at the top of the range and has rebounded strongly there. So you can see this bar here was significant, the most strongest weekly volume it had. So we needed to clear that level, which it did. So it's come back through there. So you now want to see it hold in that kind of range and above that level. So if we look at that, what's the top of that weekly bar there? 418.08. So we'll come back on the daily here. So what was that? 408. There. Where are you? 6. Not even sure where it is there. Just back on there. Basically, we need to hold above the key moving averages here. I can't see the weekly bar there for some reason. My brain was fried today. I was out last night. So, but yeah, that's what I'm looking for. I want to see this tighten up in here, a bit of VCP action, and then that could potentially set up for obviously lower risk kind of entry points. If it can follow up towards the top of the range here, start to push into the top and start to pull back in, get some VCP type action, and you could then potentially get a lower risk kind of entry points through the breakout levels, and with obviously much tighter stop losses at the moment. We've obviously got no particular area for a stop loss there, so you want to see this kind of tighten up a little bit in the top of the base. Obviously, if it does the opposite to that, starts breaking back down towards the other side, then that would be a complete no-go. You'd be out, starting to come back through that 50-day moving average there. But that is ANTM app. So highlighted this one a few times recently. There was this significant bar. I think that was last Friday, potentially. Was that the 3rd? Yeah, the 3rd. So that was last Friday. I think I highlighted that intraday on the Twitter feed with this strong relative volume. You can see it's the strongest volume it's had since the IPO. So this is the what we call the high volume close. So I prefer to call it I just call it a significant bar. But when you have the close of this kind of level here on that day, then becomes a key level to watch. So again, if I annotate this up a little bit, you can see we've got our near-term pivot points in here to get back through. You've got the high volume close from there. So you can see we're just under that at the moment. But this bar here, this whole bar is a significant bar. So we're within that range. So ideally on a significant bar, you want to see it hold like the majority of that bar on the pullback. So you can see we did have a little dip into the lower part of the bar, but it held. So at the moment, half of this significant bar range, you want to see it forming in the upper half of this bar. If it starts to dip into the lower half, then that would obviously suggest weakness. But if it's consolidating in the upper half of the significant bar range, then obviously we could potentially be moving in the right direction. So a reversal bar back through here. He says, get that to move. Strong reversal bar back through there, back through this near-term pivot. The high volume close could obviously on some strong volume again could give a potential sort of entry point on that one. So back through that 50-day moving average and 21-day, and through the top of the range there, you've got this $100 level here, which acts as key resistance. You can see it often is resistance. So 99.29, it's obviously the shorts love to pile in at those kind of key, like major landmark numbers like $100 and $10. So this is one to the pivot point to get through. You've got your high volume close, and you've got near term pivot and the $100 level. So we can start to see some moves back through there. You can see the 180R level is at 100.87 at the moment there. If we can get back through all of that and then start to consolidate above there again, then that could be good potential in this one for a further stage 2 advance. You can see it's early in its potential stage 2 advance on its first significant pullback, and we had a big demand tail the week before. Although last week's reversal was to the downside, it didn't move very far there. So at the moment it's kind of consolidating in the area of support. ASO, highlighted this one because of the volume and the strength of this reversal. So obviously it was down intraday there. You can see it had a strong reversal and closed up near the top of the range at the end of the day, back through these short-term moving averages here, the 21-day and the 50-day. Strong rebound, so went through a near-term pivot. So you've got like a spring and a test, but it's a local spring and a test type move within obviously a broader structure type thing here. But so that was what I was looking at on that. You can see it just closed underneath that 180R level. So got a bit more work to do. Again, on the weekly, it's been in a strong stage 2. Potentially could be starting to round out a bit. You can see the momentum is rolling down a bit. That we got shortening of the thrust here on these breakout moves, but it still hasn't made a lower low. So at the moment, it's kind of rolling. And if we can get this if it can make a higher high again, make a continuation, then it could obviously still have more legs in it. But obviously if it starts to break below the near term low here, back through this $40 level, then that one would come off the radar pretty quickly, as that would be a significant break to the downside, and you change your behavior and potentially this would then be forming stage 3. So that's what we're looking for on that. AVGO. So this is Broadcom. This was just a earnings gap type move on Friday. I'm not sure if it was earnings specifically, but it was a high volume gap up move. So I just wanted to always highlight these ones and then start to track them from the gap up day and how the price action reacts in the following days from the high volume close of the gap up day. So compared to that, whether the price action consolidates near the top of the range, or whether it starts to pull back in, fills the gap, all of that kind of behavior gives you different kind of information. So obviously we'd want to see continuous buying. So we'd want to see it holding up near the top of the range, sort of high type flag style. So again, we look at this on the weekly. It's still not too far into a stage 2 run. We had a stage 3 kind of top here for a while. It was in stage 3, and then it started to break out again back into stage 2 here, and we've been running higher at our couple of little continuation moves there. So you've got base 1, base 2. So we're only out into base 2 breakout and continuation move to the upside there. So in terms of after this big consolidation move that it's had here, I mean, if we put the straight swing target on this, so from here to here, so 20% move from there. So it's already reached that 20% move from there to the top of the first base. So we've met the initial swing target, and it's now making a continuation move to the upside there. You can see this was quite a big base, and there was reasonable amount of volatility. So it should give a good projection to the upside, but we need to do the point and figure horizontal count to get that. See, relative strength is strong as well. What we got? Let's get back to the daily. So I'd want to see how this one then forms up around here. But it is obviously short term, fairly extended. But like we said, extended is a relative term. It can get less extended quite quickly as it starts to, if it consolidates for a little while around this high volume close, the moving averages and the ATR bands will start to catch up. You can see it was extended here, and then it started to drift sideways, and then we're off again and we're extended again. So it's basically, it might need some time to consolidate sideways, as it is a little bit short term extended. It could obviously run immediately with this if there's heavy volume follow through, if you get an immediate follow through. But obviously, like I said, everything gives you information. You just got to obviously trade what you see, not what you think is going to happen. So Ben, this one came up on the weekend watch list. not one that I'm overly interested in. I think I wanted to highlight it because of the kind of structure it's been forming. We had this significant bar sort of breakout move here that followed through, so we had like a combo significant bar. It didn't hold that area, so you can see what I was saying before in terms of you want to see, if we can do a combo bar here, you'd want to see it kind of consolidating in this upper range here. You can see it came off all the way back down to this 50-day moving average and rebounding. So it's not extended, and it hasn't broken the significant bar range. So the significant bar goes from the prior close up to the day there. So it undercut that, and we got a test of it, and it's rebounded, but it obviously has come off a fair amount. So if we look at it on the weekly, you can see we are in a potential stage 3 on this one at the moment. So if we look at go from the change of behavior bar there. So you've got your change of behavior, secondary test, and then some further testing. We've got this sort of up thrusting type action here, and then we've pulled back into the range. So at the moment, this is stage 3 behavior at the moment. But if this can make a follow through move and start to get back out of the top of the range here, so we can get a move back through to the upside there, again, some stronger volume, then could potentially negate that. On the other hand, obviously, if we start to see it going the other way, it reverses back down below here, and we break through that 30-week moving average again and the previous low here, then that would be obviously another short entry point in terms of in stage 3 breaking down. So it's kind of a short-term sort of pivot point here with this pullback. It could go either way here. So if you start to see it breaking through these near-term moving averages and below this area, then it's potentially moving into a shortable area using the Wyckoff kind of method. Or if it can hold up and start to consolidate back up in this area above these short-term moving averages, then we could obviously form a low risk entry point for a potential continuation breakout to the upside. So again, no judgments, just obviously following the price action as it occurs and just monitoring. That's the whole point of the watch list, in terms of like never prejudge something or have a bias going into it. Just obviously analyze the charts, look at the swings, look at the volume and what the price action is doing, and look for any kind of signs of strength or weakness to try and develop a basic kind of an understanding of the structure and what it's doing, whether it's reaccumulation or whether it's distribution. It can often, with distribution, can be hard to see until the end. So we've got this with this up thrusting action type here. This obviously there wasn't huge negative volume to the downside here, so it doesn't look distributional. And obviously the market was weakening during that period. So at the moment, giving it the benefit of the doubt, but like I said, if it does start to turn back below these short-term moving averages, suddenly get like a big down day, bigger price spread, the volatility starts to increase, then obviously would change my mind about this one very quickly, and it would become obviously a potential short at that point. But at the moment, still seeing this as it could potentially be a reaccumulation and just obviously on a kind of shakeout mission at the moment. But again, we'll see. BJ's, this one's held up against the significant bar much better. It was in a good stage 2 uptrend. It like blew out a bit, I'm assuming on earnings there, on this big significant bar it had. You can see how the price action has held the significant bar range. We got a test of the low of the day on that one underneath that undercut the 21-day moving averages, and it's rebounded since, and we've made a slightly higher low at the moment. So we'll be looking for a break through this near-term pivot here on some obviously stronger relative volume ideally, but it's obviously not 100% necessary. It would be on the intraday here, the 2-hour chart, you'd be breaking through. It'd probably be like the $70 level there. What we got? Yeah, $69.94. So clear break through the $70 level on some good volume would be the best for that one. BW, so highlighted this one a few times recently. There's been a significant bar move during November here. I think it was an earnings move again. Got back up to the top of the range, bit of up thrusting action, and pulled back in again. We've made a local kind of test and spring and test type move here, which again, I said there's a lot of this at the moment kind of behavior. It's still playing out at the moment. We obviously haven't reversed to the upside, or we haven't gone negative to the downside, so you can't really judge if we've got a test or not. We can obviously only anticipate. So in terms of anticipating, we've got near-term pivot here of 9.26. So a break through that, moving up through there, obviously 5-6% move up through that could be a potential sort of swing kind of area for that one. Look at on the elder impulse, you can see the momentum at the moment is neutral, and that would take it back through the 180R level. So yeah, back through there is what I'll be watching for on that one. You can see the structure that's formed over the last 7 or 8 months now. You've got your original. Let me zoom out a tiny bit more so you can see the full structure on this one. So we've got our original buying climax into an automatic reaction, secondary test, and then we started to form up. It had a sign of weakness here and started to follow down. It couldn't make any kind of progress above the short-term moving averages there. You saw this kind of thrust up move just into this prior resistance and then roll over back below that 50-day moving average again and drifted below this 200-day. But then we got kind of a shakeout type move down here. It was it's not a spring. It's just it hovered below this level for a while, but we did form a higher low in here. So we've got a potential sort of last point of support formed underneath this 200-day moving average, and then it started to recover those levels again. We got back above that 200-day, and then you see the day before this gap up move, it held that 200-day moving average before the significant bar here on much stronger volume. So potentially this is our phase C into phase D. So at the moment we're potentially in phase D. So as I said earlier on in the video when we were looking at this intraday chart, we've got our phase C into phase D area here. So this is the expectation from phase D into phase C into phase D is a sign of strength rally, and then followed by backing up action and obviously continuation move. So we're looking for that kind of move at the moment. So we didn't get a sign of strength rally here. We got an up thrust and it pulled back in again. So, but it did move quite far in a short amount of time. So it could potentially be forming you can obviously during phase D get multiple higher lows start to form, and then we could still potentially go into a sign of strength rally. So this one, looking for it to obviously move off through this near-term level here. Right, obviously near-term breakout through there, but then for a sign of strength rally that then takes us out of the range before potential some backing up action that then sits at the top of this range and doesn't break back down into it. So that would be the expectation if we can get a near-term pivot breakout through here. Again, looking at on the ATR levels, we've got 9.28 is the 180R level there, and near-term pivot is at 9.26, so 9.3-ish, start to break up through there and potential for some short-term sort of gains there. We've got the high volume close is at 920, so they're all kind of lining up. You've got the high volume close, near-term pivot, and the 180R level there. So for me, that's the key level there. So that high volume close, 920 to 930. You can start to get a break through that on strong relative volume, then that would be a potential for a swing, at least back to the top of the range. At that point is what you'd be looking for, and then obviously from there, whether it can consolidate back up a little bit and make a VCP type action before a further continuation move on. Cars. So talked about this one a few times over the last week. In the last few weeks since this stage 2 breakout. Again, significant bar breakout, significant bar on strongest volume it had for ages. You can see that there, and then we followed on with this backing up action, which then we had this strong volume reversal here, which looked negative, but actually there was clearly it didn't make much progress there. So although it moved, it was a red day and it was on heavy volume, it still held up. So there was clearly some strong demand in there as well. And then we got this reversal bar at the prior base, the top of the prior base the following day, before reversing back up and having a really strong move from Monday to Wednesday there. It was one of the strongest movers earlier in the week, obviously on increasing volume initially into the top there at 19-ish. So you can see the prior base and the little sub base that formed on this one. If we go back to the weekly here, you can see we're in early stage 2 again. So we had this initial stage 2 advance that didn't get very far, and then we had this stage 3 range. You can see this stage 2 breakout there. We had a earlier, obviously lower pivot in there in the base as well from the lower part of the base. So stage 2 breakout move, we're into the sign of strength. So we're looking for, at the moment, the backing up action, and then obviously follow on move to the upside. That's cars. CPRI. So again, this one I've highlighted a fair few times recently. I traded it in this kind of area here and stopped out for I think it was a break-even one on this one that I'd come out of this one before it obviously did the more significant pullback during the market weakness, which was, whether it was a backing up action or not, was trying to make sense of. Because always when you get a sign of strength rally out of a base that's a potential stage 3 base, you're always thinking, what is this up thrusting action as well? So a sign of strength rally into the backup and how it reacts on the backup is kind of key to whether it's an up thrust or not. So you can see we actually did make a slightly higher high here. We haven't got back above the top of the range yet, so this could still turn into an up thrust after distribution, but at the moment I'm still treating this as a sign of strength rally, as this was a stage 2 breakout into a backup and then moving on again. So we're looking for this to continue to tighten up in here, consolidate around here, and then give low risk entry points for a potential continuation breakout to the upside. Again, you see on the weekly chart here the reasonably tight price action it's had over the last 5 or 6 weeks there since the stage 2 breakout move. But again, it could roll over here. There's no reason why it couldn't. It might not make, if it can't make the break above the top of the range here. If it falters, we get a little thrust up move, and then it starts to come back down again, and we start breaking back through these near-term levels. Then that would obviously be a double top move into an up thrust, and that would then be a shortable kind of area again, because that would turn into a stage 3 with an up thrust after distribution. So always with these ones, you've got to be aware that it could turn into a up thrusting type area, and if it does start to break back down again, you start to clear these kind of levels to the downside, then obviously that's a signal to get out quick, basically, at that point, as obviously the breakout has failed at that point. I think a good example of that in the last 6 months or so is something like Roku. I think it had that kind of pattern. D-Dog, again, we had this change of behavior here with the recent move that we saw in a lot of the growth stocks. There obviously was in a really strong stage 2 advance, and it was highlighted multiple times in the watch list throughout this area from the stage 2 breakout onwards, and earlier on back in obviously the May sort of June time. We've got this change of behavior here that pulled back into the 50-day moving average, but it did rebound back above again and got back above that 21-day moving average, slightly below it at the moment, but no, slightly above it. Got 175.87, 174, slightly below it at the moment, but we have potentially got a higher low forming here. So you can see on all the way back into Monday, the week previous Friday, we were way down below the 50-day moving average. So at the moment, this is still 13% above that. So it is constructive price action at the moment. So looking for a near-term breakout through these pivot areas in here. So this sort of range in here, I want to see a strong reversal move back through to the upside there. So again, stronger volume coming in, ideally big volume, but you don't always get it, and that's kind of what I'm looking for on that one. ePay, this was another significant bar move. You can see it was potentially, looks like an earnings gap type move there. Might not be, but that kind of behavior. We got the gap up move from the prior day, opening up strongly with what we got on there on the open. So 7% on the open, and then it followed through into the end of the day. I like obviously the strength of the intraday bar there, closed up over 18%, but the intraday bar itself moved 10% like from the open to the close. So obviously some good intraday price action, cleared multiple levels here. See, longer term, the chart is a bit more messy. It's not my favorite in terms of, you can see all the volatile price action it's had, but you can see there's some clear change of behavior type move going on here. We've got this significant bar here and then on the weekly, and then we've got this secondary significant bar. So potentially moving back into stage 2 here. You can see the 30-week is moving back up, and we've got this break above near-term levels here. There is still a lot of prior resistance from the 2020, like early 2021 time here from the prior range, but obviously on the short term, as always with these significant bars, be looking to see how the price action now forms in the coming days and against this high volume close level. So if it can consolidate in the upper part of this range here, if the pullback can be on lighter, shallow volume, diminishing volume ideally, and the price spread tighten up as it comes back in again, as long as it holds obviously in the upper range of the bar, then that would be a much more stronger signal. But if it does start to come all the way back in and get all the way back down to the support levels, then that would show a little bit more weakness. So be watching to see how this one kind of develops over the next few days or so. Right, I realised we're 45 minutes in, so I don't want to make the video too long, and I was only about halfway through the stocks, so that I was going to show. So we'll drop down to the thumbnail view, so we can candle glance view, so we can see these a bit quicker. Some of the ones that I'm watching at the moment. So we've just done ePay. We're up to ERF. You can see the potential continuation type move on that one. I think I've got that twice for some reason there, but Expedia again breaking. You're looking for a breakthrough the near-term pivot here. You can see Ford. I put that on the weekend watch list. It had a high type flag type behavior, consolidating nice and tight in here. You can see the move up through there, significant kind of volume coming in, big significant bar breakout. So be looking for how that one consolidates up in that range there. Go back to FCX. This one's been forming a good sort of range in here. It's been holding above these short-term moving averages. Again, we've got this swing here, potential for a pivot breakthrough there. GM following on from Ford, looking promising. Lucid, I wanted to highlight again because although we've had this significant pullback here, change of behavior, we're still above the initial significant bar close here. So you can see the close line here. It's held at the 50-day moving average so far and at the significant bar close. So if this can start to form up on the intraday, so if you go down to something like the 15-minute, you can see it's just starting to do some stage 1 on the 15-minute, but it's a bit too low. See the 30-minute is still in stage 4. Obviously the 1 hour will still be in stage 4 and the 2 hour will still be in stage 4 on this. But if you can start to see this start to base out a little bit, then that one could obviously start to give us a potential pivot point and start to move back up again. As on the weekly on this one, it's still in early stage 2. So we've got our stage 2 breakout there that week through this point here. So that's your obviously stage 2 breakout week. And we're on the back up at the moment. So we've got our near-term levels. We're in the turbulent zone from the top of the range there. So if this can start to form a base, and if it doesn't come all the way back down into this prior base, if it can start to consolidate in here, we could potentially get a reversal move back up through here, and you could start to form a range. Then this could get interesting again. So that's why I wanted to highlight that one. Let me go back. Candle glance. LNTH, similar sort of move, sort of local spring and potential for a pivot breakthrough there. Love, I highlighted during the week, we had the significant bar move on earnings, the obviously big V move. It's obviously hitting resistance at the moment, so you want to see it consolidate above these near-term moving averages. MDB, same sort of thing, gapped up. I think it was an earnings type move. Again, looking for a breakthrough these near-term pivots here. MDC is one of the home builders. There's lots of home builders making similar moves. I think I talked about this on the video yesterday. You can see the sort of basing structure that this has been forming. You've got it's just moving off into a sign of strength. So be looking for that to complete and start to make some backing up action and tightening up a bit. Where are we? Candle glots. MRAM, you see it's starting to pull back in a bit now. Still consolidating in the upper part, and it's still all above this significant bar. So where all this massive volume, this was its highest volume ever, I think, this day that it had here. So you can see all the price action has formed above that level at the moment. You can see that's the peak liquidity level there. So around the high volume close here of MRAM. So what is it? 10.74. So if we can, although this bar looks scary on Friday, the volume was small by comparison. There's only 633,000 shares traded compared to this day here where it traded 92 million. So although that was a big scary looking bar there, it's still consolidating in a short-term range. And if we go down on the intraday time frames here, you can see it's potentially got some spring type action in here. So we draw our base on this. So where are we? Where's our base? So we do from here to here. It has shown a little bit of a sign of weakness here, and it's rolled back up again. So this could potentially be making a lower high and starting to roll over. So if it does obviously start to break that down and get through this significant bar, then that would be a sign of weakness there. But if it can hold here, make a higher low, and then start to obviously turn back up to the upside here, if we can form a higher low and it starts to move back up this way, then potentially you'd have a spring in the test, but obviously a very deep spring in the test. But it has come into this sort of significant bar area here and held. So that's your peak kind of liquidity level there at the moment on the intraday. Obviously 10.74 on the daily, which is a little bit higher there, which is up in this kind of area. So, and it's kind of around that at the moment. So if we can hold in that level especially, then that would be a potential sign of strength, and then you'd be looking for a move back through on the near term. So that would be potentially moving into phase D if it did do that, but looking a little bit more messy at the moment. But the fact that it's still holding this initial significant bar and that the volume was so huge on that and it moves so far so quickly, you would obviously expecting it to consolidate a bit. But we'll see what comes of this one. But it is one of the more interesting semiconductor stocks at the moment. Microsoft showing some strength, breaking out of the near-term pivot base here. Highlighted it a couple of times during the week, I think. Look on the next page here. You've got Matterport has come off a lot, so it's come back into the range. Again, it hasn't broken down below this near-term pivot. If it breaks this near-term pivot, then it would be obviously much worse for it. You've got this change of behavior here at the moment, so this could be starting to form a new base on base type pattern thing here, which you obviously get. Oh, what's going on there? You get that a lot type things. You've got a buying climax into an automatic reaction, then a secondary test, and it's a very weak secondary test at the moment. But if we can get a move back through this bar here, then potentially we could get obviously a run back to the top of the range again. But if it starts to break down to the downside here, then it will be a complete no-go. Got Micron again looking interesting. It's been holding up since that significant bar move there. So we're zooming on a little bit. So a breakthrough, near-term pivots in here. So what we got there? So top of the range there, 87.67. Get a near-term breakthrough there. It's about a 2-3% move for areas currently. You can see it's just hovering on its 180R level at the moment. So it's in a short-term uptrend above its key moving averages. So weekly chart. As you can see, it's just coming out back into potential stage 1 here at the moment. What else we got here? So Nvidia, don't need to say much about Nvidia. Just looking for a near-term break back through the pivot. MXL trying to make a continuation move to the upside. ONON again, similar pattern to what we were showing earlier. Lots of these like lower May the 6th lows and then higher lows. So we're looking for a breakthrough in the near-term pivot. Oracle with a earnings gap up move on Friday, moved 15% on the day. I think the day traders were having good fun with that one. The obviously trading into the obviously gap up early in the day and then shorting it initially and then getting back in again on the lows, the $100 level, which obviously $100 level, the Livermore level acts as support and resistance. So they obviously reversed their positions and went the other way at that point and pushed back up towards the highs again for reversing back off into the end of the day, I think. But it was a good initial significant bar on that one, 15% move. So, and I think the earnings were really strong, and it's been in a strong stage 2 advance for a long time now. Pan W, again, one of the near-term leading stocks. Just looking for a continuation on that one. What else we got? PI looks interesting at the moment. So you can see I marked this up on the daily chart here. We've got this significant bar move at the end of October there. It ran up strongly above the 180R level there. It pulled back in all the way back down to the 50-day moving average. But we've had a strong reversal over the last week. It's got back up towards the top of the range. But you can see it's not extended at the moment, although obviously looks short-term extended, but it's not, because it's only just above that 180R level. So it's got room to run still. Look at it on the weekly chart here. You can see it's just at the top of the range here. You've got this original sort of stage 3. It was a big cup type shape, stage 3 or W bottom, whatever you want to call it. There you've got your W pattern into that area there, break through there, early break. You've got another base in this area here, so you've got patterns within patterns within patterns. So you can see we've made a higher low, followed through to the upside here. So looking for this one to make a continuation breakout to the upside. What else we got? Plab, again, significant bar move, and then pulling back into that. So you want to see where this pullback ends and whether the volume, you can see the volume is diminishing. So you want the volume to continue to diminish. You want it to tighten up a bit. You want a smaller price spread, and then that could potentially, and for it to hold around half of this level, which it has done so far. So if it can hold up in this upper range, if we can get a tight inside day, then it could potentially give you a near-term entry point on that one. Plug. I wanted to highlight this one again. It was highlighted a lot back down in this kind of area down here as it started to move out. It had this initial sign of strength rally and into the backup, but the backup action was a little bit weak here. It's pulled back underneath the 50-day moving average and reversed back below it again. So there is a little bit of a sign of weakness in here as it's coming back into the range a little bit. But it's still potentially in early stage 2. You can see the stage 1 base that was forming there. It's coming back in a little bit, but it still hasn't broken back below this 30-week moving average. So say if you're using the investor method entry points, I think that's your investor method entry point, and your stop loss would go underneath the 30-week moving average and the initial swing low. So still be all the way down there in terms of your investor method stop loss. Near-term stop losses, obviously swing traders would be out at this point and then be looking to get back in again. But if we can get a move back up to the upside here, then that could actually then form a secondary entry point there. So that's your Weinstein secondary entry point. And again, same with Wyckoff, that's the backup entry point on that one. And then your relative strength line down here would then obviously turn back up again as well if we got a move like that and start to move on to new highs once more. So that's what I would be watching for on that one personally. QCOM, I entered last week. Took an entry here on the inside day. So up a little bit on that at the moment. It's a little bit choppy going into the end of the week with the weakness what we had on Thursday and Friday, but held up really well so far. So you can see it was a good initial stage 2 move here and a tight consolidation. So it's trending well at the moment. And you can see the stage 2 run that it's had so far and this kind of flagging behavior that it's had at the top of the range. So again, if we look at the broader range here, you've got this bigger sort of stage 3 pattern and it's holding above at the moment. And you've also got these secondary lower patterns within the range here from that area there with your short-term up thrust into a spring and then follow through into a sign of strength rally. So really strong sign of strength. The backup action has been very tight and held. We didn't come anywhere near back into the range at that point. So that one at the moment is looking strong. QFin, much weaker stock. I wanted to highlight this one again as it has been attempting to base since August. You see the 50-day moving average has started to go sideways and started to turn up a little bit. We're still below that 200-day moving average. If we look at it on the weekly, it looks a bit messy. You've got the stage 2 there. We moved into stage 3, but it broke down into stage 4 quickly. There was no real stage 3 sort of top. It went straight into 3 and then broke into stage 4, and then it started to base. So we've been in kind of a stage 4 attempting to base. So it could still reverse and break down and continue in stage 4. But if we can get a break back through to the upside here, back through that 200-day moving average I said there, then this one could potentially reverse its fortunes and start to go back to the upside again. You can see momentum starting to get a little bit more positive again here. That 180R level is at 24.86. So, but you want to see it get through that 200-day moving average strongly. So that's QFin, Starbucks we already talked about. SGMA, just a massive significant bar, so be watching to see how the price action reacts to that one. SM, one of the energy names, and it was a really strong energy name last year. We had a massive 1,000% rally in stage 2, and I highlighted it a few times when we were in this kind of basing area here. I think it was over, we might have even been over here, but it was, I haven't highlighted it for a little while, but you can see we've had a pullback into the top of this sort of area here at the moment, which it's held so far. So looking for some tennis ball action here. Obviously want to see, this is base on base at the moment, so you want to see it make a continuation. But at the moment, if we go down to the 3 ATR candles here, you've got your 1 ATR level, which is just coming up to 33.49. So you want to see it break back above these near-term levels and start to hold above that 1 ATR level again. As we said, when you're above that 1 ATR level, then you're generally in a short-term uptrend. When you're below it, you're in either choppy behavior or then into the more negative behavior. So need to see it get back above that, start to consolidate and start to obviously trend once more. Snow, still early in this basing behavior. I was obviously fortunate, got out of my position on the up at this point here on the second part of my position. I think I sold my first part of position around this kind of area, and then I sold the second half on the day up here at the 1 ATR level as it started to come back through that again. So it's had obviously 2 big significant bar breakdowns there, come back into the 50-day and then formed a higher low and rebounded back through again. So it's potentially making obviously a near-term base here. We've got this big sort of V-shaped cup and handle type pattern forming. So it could obviously make a move to the upside again, but we're in obviously a trading range at the moment. So when we're in a trading range, we're only looking for short-term moves initially. So we'll be looking for a break through these near-term pivots here, and then for a run back towards the top of the range again. SUM, same sort of thing, pull back into a higher low. So off this base into the and then we've made a higher low, so looking for a breakthrough this near-term pivot. Swim, again, near-term pivot break, looking for that. Tesla, looking a little bit weak at the moment, but if it can break through this near-term pivot here and then again recover that 1 ATR level there, then it could potentially start to trend. But we are in obviously a sideways trading range at the moment. So whether this is a reaccumulation range or distribution is not clear at this point. We did have some strong initial volume at this point, but you can see the supply has been diminishing as we've gone through the base. We're back at the 50-day and we've had 2 tests of the 50-day at the moment, but we did form a higher low on Friday. So we need to see that swing back and start to make higher highs again, and that could potentially then move us out back towards the upside again. But if it rolls over, we start to get a break back below here, below the bottom of this range, and start to get some closes below this 50-day moving average, then it could be obviously then on for a much further test back down at the 200-day moving average. So, but for the moment, we're in a range and looking for a continuation move to the upside as we're still in the early move of stage 2 after this obviously big stage 3 top that we were in for a while on this one. So you can see at the moment we're in the backup. So we're looking for obviously strong move to the upside, breakout, continuation, ideally some stronger volume. TTD, same sort of thing again, significant bar, high volume close, reacted into that. We've had that gap up move on Tuesday and it's held up during the rest of the week. So it's looking reasonably strong there. We get the 3 ATR candles on here. You can see the 1 ATR level is just above the 100 level there, 102. So break through the near term pivot here and through that $100 level would be my ideal on that one. And then I would consider taking this one again, as it's still again looking like a strong move after the stage 3 range that it had. So we were in stage 3 back in here. So you got your original buying climax up here. You could obviously take it from this point here. So that's the broader move. That's obviously your bigger range. So it's come back into that a little bit, but it's held this significant bar. So again, looking for continuation type move to the upside, strong relative volume. TU, you can see we've got some VCP type action going on this one. So just looking for a straight move to the upside on strong relative volume. So you see the VCP going on in there. And then finally, Wolf, same sort of pattern again, significant bar. You've got high volume close, which is under at the moment. So again, if I mark this up quickly, got your high volume close area here. So you'd want to see a break back through that on some stronger volume would be potential for, and then that would have been a higher low, or actually through this pivot here, maybe a couple of days to get through that, and a strong volume move going through that, maybe some stepping volume, but that kind of thing. And then back through your 180 ATR level, then you'd be looking for a test of the top of the range on that one. So obviously an area to potentially trim if you were short-term trading, and then give it a bit of room to obviously wait for it to consolidate and tighten up, because it could potentially be in a trading range. So, and then that is that. Right, that's your lot. So 1 hour and 5 minutes, I think that'll do. So thanks for watching, guys. You're legends, and I appreciate all the support you give me. So I will see you on the next one.